Welcome to the Messianic Hour with Rabbi Scott Sekulow. The Messianic Hour is a program designed to give you insight into the Jewish roots of your faith. Rabbi Scott is also here to answer your questions and help you gain a deeper understanding of Bible prophecy. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Scott Sekulow.
Shalom and welcome to another edition of the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. This show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. I'm here with my wife, Judy, as we share each week, as we proclaim the gospel and bring out the Jewish perspective. And I'm glad you're with us. We have a very special show. We're going to be looking at Acts chapter 27, just the first part of it this week, as Paul gets on the boat and starts his journey. And then on the second half of the show, we're going to have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Rabbi Eric Tokajer with the Messianic Times and the Messianic Daily News. So you're going to hear about what's going on in that ministry and the work that they're doing. They've been around for a number of years. They'll get some neat things on the horizon, so stay tuned for that. But Judy, how are you doing today?
Honey, I would help you with that.
I do.
We're doing really well.
We're getting ready for?
Yes, Rosh Hashanah. We're almost there. We're down into, I think, almost single digits now. So we'll be starting the high holiday season of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot.
And if you're watching, you can watch online via our iPads. Hopefully we'll have our Android up by then as well. Our Android app is almost ready. And you'll be able to tune in via our live streaming of all the services. So if you don't have a Messianic congregation in your area, we want you to join us at Congregation Beth Adonai, either in person if you're in Atlanta or via the live streaming wherever you are around the world. Check that out at rabbiscott.com. We have a direct link over to the congregation. But Judy, we got an email this week from one of our listeners asking the question about Matthew chapter 24, verses 1 through 14. And he asked basically, are we going to see this with our own eyes? And what it's talking about is the events are going to be happening before the Messiah's return. And it deals with the different situations of the wars and the rumors of wars. And he asked, are we going to see that with our own eyes? And the answer is yes, we will see that. Now, I guess if you're a pre-tribber, you might not think we're going to really see all of it. But that particular scripture really leans more towards the mid or post-trib theology. Of course, I'm a pan-tribber, which means just be ready. It's all going to pan out at the end. But yes, we will see the events that will take place. We will see persecution amongst believers in the land, believers around the world. These will take place before the Messiah's return. So yes, these are events we will see before our eyes. The desolation of the land, the attacks that will be going on, all these are part of that time. And as believers, we will be seeing those events. So that's a great question. Why don't you tell them how they have another question, how they can ask?
Well, there's two ways that they can get in touch with us. You can give us an email at mail@rabbiscott.com, mail@rabbiscott.com, that comes to email, or you can go to Facebook. Look for our group. It's called the Messianic Hour. Ask to join the group. And we post on there. I post the weekly Torah portions every week. I post commentary. Because we're in the month of Elul, and Elul is the preparation stage, I also been posting reflections for each month. So two ways, Facebook and email, that they can get in touch with us.
And that's how the last one came. So we'll be back right after this break. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Messianic Hour.
Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm Judy Sekulow, and I'm glad that you're listening and watching. If you're watching on YouTube or Vimeo today with us, as we are going over Acts 27. Now, we've seen that the last quarter of the book of Acts really kind of occupies itself with trials and mistrials of Rabbi Shaul. And now we're just kind of seeing this continuing saga of his final journey. All of this has been going through accusations and false accusations, and how he protests his innocence and he makes a defense for his faith, and again and again and again and again, which I can't stress enough, he states that he has not desecrated the Torah. He has not taught against the Torah. He hasn't, denied Torah. And I think it's really interesting that Luke actually takes 7 chapters, Rabbi, to drive home this point. And now we see that we're kind of getting back to the shipwreck apostle. And I have to tell you, this is not a man that you'd want to go on a ship ride with.
Yeah, and this is his fourth shipwreck. Nothing's really mentioned about the previous three, but, Gilligan's Island is a theme that comes around here. And you would think that someone who's had 4 shipwrecks, the people should listen to him. He knows what he's talking about.
Yes, he does.
And we had, I think a lot of people think this might have been a small boat. It's holding almost 300 people on it. This is a big, big ship. And yet, the weather at that time of year, you had to be very careful on how you went about what you did. And we see this taking place. But Judy, what really is interesting, and you kind of brought this up with what you were talking about, where Luke really gives us an insight of what's going on, because through this we know that it's during the High Holy Days that they're on the water. And one of the reasons why is the scripture actually says that it was after the feast. And so we see here these things taking place, and that's really what we want to take a look at. So why don't you start with it?
Well, we see that Rabbi Shaul and several other Judean prisoners are bound for Rome, and they're under the custody of a centurion named Julius. And he's booked passage for him, his men, and these prisoners on a vessel. And I think the one thing that was interesting is that Paul actually had traveling companions with him.
You think of someone being in prison, you don't think of having an entourage coming with you, but again, it's different back then. While he was in prison, so far they have found him not guilty. So I think they were giving him a lot more leeway than maybe some of the other prisoners. But in fact, we know at least 4 people that are with him, including Luke. So not only does he have these other men to help him out, even as a doctor with him, this is a good deal. So he comes along and is making sure that they're following along with what's going on.
Well, and the thing that's interesting is he's got 2 people from Thessalonica who originally sailed with him for 2 years. So these men have already been with him for 2 years, and they're demonstrating their loyalty to him. And then most likely, they say Timothy is with them because, Timothy appears in Rome. And then, like you said, Luke, being a doctor, is very meticulous in recording ports of calls and departures. And he tells us, all about this trip that they're about to have.
And bringing back the point to these 2 men from Thessalonica, being the fact they've traveled with them before, most likely they've been with them. So talk about, not only did they have faith as a brother with Paul, but they had a real faith in the Lord that they knew they were supposed to be there. Because I don't know, 1 shipwreck, okay, maybe I'll go back with you another time. 2 and 3, you're on your own, amigo. But we see here that this is taking place, and they're going, and again, this is around the time of the feast. If Paul and these others didn't care about the feast anymore, why is Luke mentioning it? And we see here, that's something I think a lot of people overlook when you look at the scripture, because it talks about the fact that they were celebrating this feast. And that is a key point as we look at this to understand the importance of what's going on. So here they are in this boat, heading up the coast, trying to get to their place, and what do we see take place now?
Well, they make it to a place called Fair Havens, and there they waited for the wind to break. They're already starting to encounter this wind. And it says that they spent the holy day of Yom Kippur, and they fasted and they prayed. And then it was after the fast of Yom Kippur that Shaul warned the centurion in 27:10, "Men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to the ship and cargo and to our own lives also." And it's interesting that Luke notes after the fast. Again, it tells us because Yom Kippur is a fast day, but also it kind of tells us that time of year, like you pointed out. And it's when the shipping in this time of season, shipping became very dangerous by the sea. And the dangerous season really went from September 14th until about November 11th. Very dangerous. And then after that, it really kind of shut down for the winter.
Right.
So Shaul was probably telling them, let's just stay here and winter here so we can make it to our destination alive.
And again, this gives us a timeline that the feast that we're talking about fall in between the beginning of September and October. So with that, we know that this is the feast in which they're talking about and how we have to understand that. So that's important. And again, you mentioned, I think it's in the 10th or 11th verse, that he says, after the feast. I really want to hit that home with people.
That was the 10th.
Is that we see here, they were celebrating the feast. They were still keeping their Jewish identity. Nothing changed.
And then we know right after Yom Kippur becomes the Feast of Sukkot. And Julius the centurion felt confident that they could make it. So they wanted to really kind of go just a little further up the coast to the city of Phoenix, because that port was better for harboring the ship for the winter. It probably had better accommodations. And so they set sail. And now we see that we're in the Feast of Sukkot, where they're on the boat. And it's kind of interesting because Sukkot, you're supposed to build a tabernacle.
Right. Just be on land,
as
too,
a temporary, yeah, if you're on land, you build a temporary dwelling. And here, Rabbi Shaul, and they're in a temporary dwelling called a boat. And Sukkot is to recall the time of God tabernacling with us and his provision. And we see going through that in this boat during the Sukkot, God really does take care of them.
Yeah, and really provides and shows he's with us. It's interesting to note, Judy, this is not the first time Jews got stuck on a boat during this feast. Matter of fact, the Midrash tells us that Rabbi Gamliel, his forerunner, his mentor, also had this happen to him as well. So we see that this is something that's not uncommon to take place, especially during that time when travel took so long.
Right, and why don't I kind of go through it? On day one, you've got the Sukkot storm, and Saul's prediction proved very accurate. And the wind was so fierce, and the storm was so unrelenting that the sailors could only drop the sails and let the boat go where it wanted to. And so they drifted all over. Day two, again, we're in Sukkot still. The storm was so bad, and their boat was taking on water that they were like, we've got to lighten the load to make the boat a little more buoyant. So here they dumped all of this grain, which really would have represented an immense financial loss for the ship and the captain. But they're working out of desperation and fear. Day three, they're still having problems, so they start getting rid of the cargo, and anything except bare essentials they've thrown overboard. Now, day 4 through 13, they must have been in a hurricane, a northeaster, whatever you want to call it. They couldn't even see the sun or the stars. They had no idea what day it was. Was it morning? Was it evening? But yet Paul is not losing hope. He knows that where he's going, and he knows he's going to make it. Right. And then we see on the 13th day from when the storm began, an angel of the Lord appeared to Shaul and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you." And then, day 14, they're close to land, and they see that Shaul sees that some of the crew is going to jump ship, so he goes and gets Julius, and Julius stops it. And the next thing we know, we end up that they're all on this island of Malta. And that's kind of where we get left, that he's stuck on Malta, and where is he going to go from there? How is he going to get there? And that's going to be covered in chapter 28.
That's right, next week's episode. So go ahead and read chapter 28. You're going to get an understanding of that. But we see here he's fulfilling the scripture. God made a promise to him that he would go there, but we even seen that he's protecting those who are with us. A perfect example of Sukkot, God dwelling among us, is God's protector, God's shelter. And they listened and followed along and were able to be blessed by being with Paul. So we see here a great understanding of what's going on. Again, I want to encourage you to go to our website, rabbiscott.com, and take a look at what's going on the website. You can sign up for our newsletter to receive our free newsletter and to receive the free gift, the book, I Have a Friend Who's Jewish to You, and the prophecy card for signing up. Check out rabbiscott.com. Remember, we are a listener-supported show. You can donate right there online securely, and you can also plant a tree in Israel. We'll be back right after this.